Hi everyone, my name is Henry from Quicksilver Series. I want to show you how you can import truss modeling from AutoCAD DXF or any other application to understand a DXF into our design environment so you can be able to analyze and design the truss. Okay, to start with, of course, you open the software from your desktop or from program files. Then you have to click on File, click New. Okay, it's asking us if we want to set defaults. This time around we just say no. Okay, the next you have to prepare the truss you want to import from AutoCAD. So I'll go over to AutoCAD environment. Okay, now in AutoCAD, even if you have the trusses, except if you are the one that prepared the truss, then you can go ahead with it. But even if you have the trusses already in AutoCAD, it's very good you create a separate layer for the truss. Okay, so because it's very good you have to trace the truss by yourself. What I mean by that, because the software recognizes lines to be your truss elements, so any line that you make in AutoCAD is very important. So what I always advise is, first of all, create a different layer, okay, that will house your truss. So in this time we go ahead and create my layer for my trusses. Okay, let me create a new layer. Let me call it truss layer. Okay, I can change the color so it will be different from the color of the truss I already have in AutoCAD. Okay, I'll change the layer. Okay, so the color did not change. I have to go back and get the color to change. The layer color, let's change it. Can use whatever color you want to use. Okay, fine. Now I have to use the line object to now create my truss in AutoCAD. Okay, now why I have to do this is very important, because I want to make sure that the lines I have are the lines I want to be there. Okay, it's not always good to assume from start that these lines you are looking at, that they are all perfect. Okay, I want to make sure I trace the lines by myself. It is very important that you trace the lines by yourself so that you make sure that the elements connect at their nodes, because if they don't, if the elements did not join together, then they are bound to be trouble in your truss modeling. Okay, or your truss model analysis, doing analysis stage. So it is very important you don't just read off that the trusses you are seeing in AutoCAD, I mean, they are all perfect. Sometimes somebody that is drawing a truss line, for instance, can draw a line that will start from this point and go all the way to this point. So, and can imagine that does not represent a normal element in this kind of truss arrangement. So it is very important that though the lines of the truss has been drawn, but to prepare it for it to be read by the software, you create a separate layer, call it whatever name you want to call it. In this case, I choose to call it a truss layer, and then use the line object in AutoCAD to create lines one after the other that represent each element as you want them to be. This is very, very important. Okay, and please make sure that you don't use a polyline. This is a polyline in AutoCAD. A line object is quite very important. The software only recognizes line object as your elements, so it does not recognize the polyline. So if you use a polyline to create the truss, the software will not interpret it. Okay, so it's important you use the line object, you know, to create your trusses. Okay, now as I said earlier, you have to always make sure that the points you are dropping, that they intersect at the joints. And usually in AutoCAD, to make that easier, you can enable your object snap. In this case, this is my object snap, but it's F3. You then put your object snap so that it will help you to make sure that you are actually clicking on the nodes. If need be, please, it's important that you can also zoom in into the node. If you have a very complex truss arrangement, it's always better you zoom into the nodes, or the joints, and make sure that you're actually clicking at the right place. Okay, because this is what can actually cause trouble during your analysis stage. Because trusses, if they did not connect at the joints, then there is a failure and you are bound to have trouble. So please, it's very important. This is a very diligent work. You take your time, make sure you trace all the lines one after the other if need be, but remember, as I said, you must use a line object from AutoCAD or from whatever CAD application you're using. A line object is very important. So carefully you trace the nodes, the elements, and then click at each of the points. Make sure that you zoom in at intervals. If you have a very complex truss analysis, make sure your object snap is also on, okay, so that you can make sure you are snapping at points that you really want to snap at. Okay, so this is very important. So gently you map out your trusses. Okay, after tracing your element positions, which is very important, you can see we have our truss. Then I can turn off this layer where I have my truss, and then delete off every other line in the drawing. Very, very important. In fact, I also advise you can zoom extent to make sure that there is no line in sight, because the software will always interpret any line as a truss element. Okay, so you uncheck the layer that you have created earlier where you made your truss, where you trace the truss, and then once you turn it off, and then you can delete every other layer. Just select every other layer and delete it off. Okay, select every object and delete it off. Okay, then you can turn on the layer again. So this is it. So we have our truss prepared and good to go. So as I said earlier, it's very important. You have to use the line object to create each of the elements. I'm sorry, this have to be a little bit in the sense that sometimes you might already have these trusses already drawn, but the trouble is because the trusses have to connect at each element. So it is very important that you don't just take a drawing another person have already done. Make sure the drawing are done by yourself and you have traced the elements line by line. Okay, don't make any assumption, because at the end of the day is what you give the software that is going to produce for you. Okay, because sometimes if somebody else is drawing this truss arrangement, for instance, the person might that doesn't know the use of the truss, the person can draw a line all the way from here to this end, and structurally you can't represent a truss element that way. Okay, so that's why it is very important you make sure you look at each of the you trace the line by yourself to avoid any mistake. Okay, now the next is for us to save this file as a DXF. I can save it first of all as a DWG so you can keep a copy of it. Okay, then I will go all the way and save as a DXF. Now I can call it I can save as AutoCAD 2004 DXF. Okay, let me call it my truss example 3. Good. I'll save as a DXF, and after saving as a DXF, please remember to close it. It might ask you to save it again as a DWG, which we have already done earlier, so I'll just say no. Okay, then I'll go back to my Quick Structure 7 environment. Now at this point, all I need to do is click on File to read in my trusses now to import the truss. Okay, I'll just click on File, then I'll click Import AutoCAD DXF C element. And to tell you this operation, we import AutoCAD DXF C element. Before you continue, it is important you understand how the software reads your DXF file. What I have said earlier, lines are read as still elements, so make sure the only lines in the DXF are still elements. Please make sure the elements are well connected at the joints. You might need to zoom in to be sure, just as I have described and what we just talked about earlier. Okay, please note this action will delete all the current elements. Are you sure you want to do this? Of course we want to do that. Then we'll click yes. Then I will select the earlier DXF I have created, and please make sure you note where your DXF are saved. If you are saving in my document, if you're saving in the desktop, or if you are, as you can see, I created a folder for it and saved inside the folder, always make sure you know where they are so you can be able to locate the file and open. Cool. So you can see our truss has been imported and everything went very well. Okay, another point I would like to mention before I wrap this up is this: in very complex truss arrangements, it might be very good that you zoom into the nodal points. Okay, usually if you have a double line, in fact starting with the grids, a very good point of check is this. Okay, now you can see I have my user defined grids that define the grid of the truss. Usually automatic, the software unchecks the normal grids. This is the normal grids at 500 interval. The software will always uncheck it. Okay, and then it will turn on the user defined grid. Okay, now a very good quick way to check to make sure that you have really clicked on the nodal points very well. You can see that we don't have multiple lines, you know, at the grids. They're all single, and you can see this is the horizontal grids, this is the vertical grids, they're all single. Some other times, please, it's also good to be sure, because sometimes these lines can be so small. Now as you zoom more into the drawing, you know, if the lines are double, automatically you will see them. Okay, you can see in this case, I mean, they're all single grids. If for instance you have another line here, for instance, you, at this scale, you'll see it. Okay, because I mean the software of course blows up everything, so you can be able to see, you know, blows everything, you know, enlarge everything, so you can be able to see it. That is the first check you need to be sure, just to make sure that everything is okay and that you don't have double grids. Because if you have double grid at this point, that means that could be a node was not well connected. Okay, that is number one. Then the second thing you need to also be sure again is that just take another look, make sure that this circle, excuse me, or this ring, the ring of the node points, that they are not double or they did not overlap. Because once there is an overlap at the nodes, or where there is, if the ring is not perfectly in order, showing that all the, you can see I have like 1, 2, 3, 4 elements, you know, joining at this node, you can see the circle is just very perfect and smooth. Now if for any reason the circle is not perfect, that means that one joint, one element is either not well joined, you know, to the node. Okay, so it's another safeguard, so you can just watch it out. Okay, now this is actually how you can import your drawing into import your truss modeling from AutoCAD or from any other truss or any other DXF CAD environment into our software. Okay, now this is the first part of this lesson. We'll continue later. Thank you.